You know what, Joshua? Everyone's been loving this Mandalorian finale, but not that crazy about it. I mean, is it me? Is it the show? Am I like some highbrow snob that turns good things like Star Wars into problems? Oh my gosh, I'm lost and I'm so confused, Joshua. Please help me to understand! Disclaimer. I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan. I saw the original movie in kindergarten, and ever since The Force Awakens, I've seen every theatrical release in the theater on opening day. Here are my Black Series action figures, my Marvel Jason Aaron comic books, my Dark Horse comic books, issue 1 of Charles Soule's current Star Wars series, and my custom toy lightsaber I made at Disney World. So please, before you go post an angry comment about how I'm a fake fan and a dummy with bad taste, just please remember, I probably like Star Wars as much as you do. And this is, after all, just my opinion. So let's all try and be kind, thoughtful, and respectful to one another. Yeah. Recently, Star Wars and I haven't been on the same page. I love the original trilogy, the prequels have their moments, and for the most part, I've been happy with what's come out of the Disney era. But when Lucasfilm recently announced their upcoming slate of projects, and I watched the finale for the Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I realized I had been burying some frustrations I had with the franchise for quite some time now. To me, it feels like the magic of new Star Wars material is gone.
But why is that? Why would this franchise that I love dearly suddenly lose its charm, its excitement? What made me change my mind? Or maybe more importantly, what happened to Star Wars? To find my answer, I must venture through the cold, wild, unforgiving landscape of suburban Ohio.
Now, in order to fully understand this subject, we have to start at the beginning. When Star Wars first came out in 1997, it became the biggest commercial success of that year, and went on to become the highest-grossing film in history at the time, topping Steven Spielberg's Jaws. When you look back at some of the initial critical reviews for the film, it becomes quite clear that part of the reason it was such a massive success was due to its unstoppable imagination. Roger Ebert himself wrote these words. In Star Wars, George Lucas takes this simple and powerful framework into outer space, and that is an inspired thing to do, because we no longer have maps on Earth that warn, here there be dragons. We can't fall off the edge of the map, as Columbus could, and we can't hope to find new continents of prehistoric monsters or lost tribes ruled by immortal goddesses. Not on Earth anyway, but anything is possible in space, and Lucas goes right ahead and shows us very nearly everything. He was exactly right. The movie is stuffed to the brim with creative spectacle like the weird aliens, retro-futuristic technology and production design that felt real and lived in, laser swords, space stations that could destroy entire planets, space Nazis, World War II-style dogfights, and groundbreaking visual effects that still hold up to this day. The characters were well casted and set against the backdrop of a perfectly structured, classical tale of an unlikely hero rising up to lead the charge against the forces of evil. The film was heavily influenced by samurai movies, westerns, and pulp serials, all of which were things that audiences at the time were pretty sick of, which makes it interesting that this movie even got funded in the first place. But anyway, Lucas and Co. were able to remix and blend all those influences into a really unique and refreshing way. The film's non-stop thrills, exciting details, and playful, campy energy made it impossible not to fall in love with. This was, and still is, pure, unbridled escapism. In other words, it was new. It was original. 3 years later in 1980, The Empire Strikes Back was released, and now holds a status as one of the masterpieces of American cinema, and retrospectively it's pretty easy to see why. At the time of its release, most of the negative criticism surrounding the original Star Wars was due to its perceived lack of substance, maturity, or sophistication. Joy Goldboynium, writing for the Wall Street Journal, went as far as to say, "It's the triumph of camp, that sentiment which takes delight in the awful simply because it's awful." Ouch! Jeez! Anyway, that all changed with The Empire Strikes Back. Sure, the film still had all the recognizable elements and quirks of the original Star Wars, but with a few surprising additions. For one, the tone was much darker. The narrative basically consists of the rebellion taking devastating loss after loss, to the point where at the end of the movie, they're on the brink of annihilation. It doesn't have its predecessor's happy ending, and to me, that's a really bold move. In fact, what I believe makes this film so great is the amount of creative risk-taking that occurs. Han is frozen in carbonite, Luke's hand gets cut off. Even Han and Leia's romance is a gamble, because as we've all learned, fans can be brutal when it comes to relationships in film. And most obviously, this.
No, I am your father.
I think in the modern context, we underrate and undervalue the significance of this moment. The twist doesn't just work because it's jarring and shocking, it works because it means something. Luke, a nobody who thought his whole life that his father was killed by Vader, the literal embodiment of everything he stands against, learns that that same enemy is in fact his long-lost father. Jokes aside, this is some serious stuff. It's a devastating reveal that draws upon elements of Greek tragedy. It means that instead of succeeding, Luke fails, and miserably at that. Moreover, it adds the nuance and emotional complexity many couldn't find in the original film. And as a result of that, it's become one of the most iconic and quoted scenes in the history of cinema. Can you imagine if this moment was badly written, if it fell flat on its face? Let me go one step further. Could you imagine if it wasn't even in the movie? No? Me neither. Like I said before, Empire is defined by its daring creative decisions. There is no way this film would be nearly as explosive, as exciting, as exhilarating, as iconic and legendary if it decided to play it safe. And up until this point in history, that's what made Star Wars so special. In the Hollywood mainstream, it dared to go where no one had gone before. It took risks in service of the art, something that's quite rare for a blockbuster to do. And yes, I just quoted Star Trek in a Star Wars video. Live long and prosper.
I revered the audaciousness of the original trilogy, except Return of the Jedi. That one doesn't go nearly as hard. But as I go deeper and deeper into the wilderness, I begin to wonder, does this mentality extend to the rest of the movies? The prequels, the sequels, the spin-offs, the Mandalorian, heck, even the animated shows. I must look further.
So, the prequels.
Oh, I don't think so.
An angel.
This is where the fun begins. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me.
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You know, those movies. Look, I know we all make fun of this trilogy, even the people that like them make fun of them, but even in my opinion, if the movies don't really work, I really believe that there's something truly admirable about them. Just take a look at any given scene and there's a stunning amount of creativity and detail. From Coruscant and the Republic to the Jedi Order, pod racing, battle droids, Naboo and the Gungans, Mustafar, Camino and the clones, Geonosis. All these worlds and cultures are so vastly different and unique. Notice the variety in the designs of the starships, the Jedi starfighters, the Separatist and Republic cruisers, the droid ships, the clone fighters, all of Padme's ships. Genuinely, this is really impressive world building that borders on the edge of gonzo. And while unfortunately the prequels fall apart because of issues with pacing, performance, narrative, and cinematography, it's hard not to ignore the level of artistry and imagination on display here. There's no shortage of creative risk-taking either. The whole make Anakin's turn into Darth Vader relatable thing? Gamble. The Senate meetings and the political stuff? Gamble. Jar Jar? Gamble. Now, I know many would tell you that these risks don't really pay off, but for the purposes of this video, it doesn't matter how they panned out. It just matters that they're there. And George Lucas had the courage to take them. Except Jar Jar, who we all agree is great. I mean, look at this guy.
Monsters out there, leaking in here, all sinking and no power? When are you thinking we're in trouble?
Awesome! Now, back to The Mandalorian. Upon revisiting the series for research purposes, I discovered I have one major problem with the show. The Mandalorian undeniably has the feeling of something new, something fresh, which makes sense because it is in fact a show about a new character in a new time period visiting new planets. But that's about it. To me, Season 1 functions as such. Characters you've seen before, but cooler and edgier, going to planets you've seen before, but cooler and edgier. Don't get me wrong, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Most great films and television shows are just a combination of older ideas presented in a unique and interesting way. A good recent example of this is Rian Johnson's Knives Out. And to the show's credit, Season 2 tries to do just that, by setting multiple episodes on more interesting and visually creative settings. And then fan service gets in the way. Let's just count real quick how many pre-existing characters and locations pop up over the course of the show. You got Bo-Katan, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Tatooine, the Cantina on Tatooine, R5, Krayt Dragon, Dark Troopers, heck, even the Darksaber, and of course, Luke Skywalker. In theory, I'm not opposed to bringing in older franchise characters into a new story, and I think that some of the characters I just named were handled fairly well, the best example being Bo-Katan. New attributes and motivations for her are revealed over the course of her 2 episodes, and Katie Sackhoff's performance in the finale is subtly maniacal, demented, and desperate. She provides further character development for Din Djarin by questioning his identity and purpose, something we see explored in later episodes such as The Believer. Her appearance pushes the overall story forward and simultaneously adds depth not only to her character, but other characters around her. In other words, it's good writing. Good job, Favreau. But the problem arises in the fact that that's not the case for all of the other characters. People are going to hate me for saying this, but in my opinion, that includes Ahsoka Tano. As good as Rosario Dawson's performance and Dave Filoni's dialogue are, you could interchange Ahsoka with literally any other living Jedi, and the episode would be unaffected. The only thing she adds to Din Djarin's character is naming Baby Yoda, and aside from one line at the very end,
"Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?"
nothing is added to her character either. And for someone who's on screen for almost the entirety of an episode, that's kind of a problem. Frankly, even though there's always logical continuity to back it up, I don't see the point of bringing in an iconic character in this fashion other than to make fans happy. And I'll be the first to admit, I was very excited at the prospect of seeing Ahsoka in live action, and I got really hyped when I saw her sprint into frame for the first time. It was awesome. She's given a handful of really great action scenes and has a commanding on-screen presence. However, retrospectively, it kind of feels like a missed opportunity. A similar problem occurs with Luke Skywalker. At the end of the episode, the Dark Troopers have backed our heroes into a corner, and it looks as if they'll have to fight their way out. This plot point has the potential for substantial growth for all the respective characters. Then, at the last second, Luke Skywalker shows up and bails them all out. Yes, according to continuity and typical television show structure, it makes sense that a Jedi would appear in the finale, given that, just 2 episodes ago, Grogu reached out through the Force. Yet, when the reveal comes and we realize it's Luke Skywalker, our attention shifts away from the core characters and the drama at hand to, "Whoa, look, it's that guy from the original trilogy!" Luke showing up doesn't mean anything. It carries no thematic heft. It's just there because it looks cool. And normally, that would not be a problem. Like, take a look at Mission Impossible 2. That movie is bad, but it's so cool that it kinda rules. What I'm trying to say is this cameo would be fine if Luke Skywalker wasn't Luke Skywalker, a character that is much, much more than a mere throwaway reference. At least for me, I expect every time Luke Skywalker to be on screen, it's not going to be shallow, and that's because of how well written and how significant he is in all the other films. I understand that there's not even close to enough time to give Luke a complete full arc in the episode, like he's only in it for like 5 minutes, but then my question becomes, why even put him in the show if you're not going to contribute anything to his overall character? A few minutes later, we get a gut punch of a scene between Din and Grogu, and all of the show's themes come full circle in a big emotional crescendo. And then R2-D2 rolls in and kills the mood. Once again, our focus is shifted, and the moment is gone. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like the last 2 shots of the episode aren't tear-jerking, but by that point, I've been taken out of the experience because of the references. At first, I was confused and in a bit of disbelief that a show I had up until this point thoroughly enjoyed would make this type of creative decision. And as I went back and rewatched all the Star Wars movies in preparation for this video, I discovered that this same problematic storytelling device has been used before. In both Rogue One and Solo, fan-favorite characters such as Darth Vader and Darth Maul get pointless scenes at the end of each movie just so they can look cool. These scenes, particularly Darth Vader's, are not poorly made. They're well directed, well edited, and in the moment, they're exciting. Yet, looking back, I find that they represent my issues with modern Star Wars as a whole. These movies and series are relying on shallow callbacks and empty hits of nostalgia to keep things exciting without making an actual effort to progress, to push the series forward. Coming in part 2 next week.